Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Legends of Takaful, a podcast series proudly put together by actuarial partners celebrating 40 years of Takaful in Malaysia. So, who is a legend? It's easy to look back and see who is a legend, as hindsight is 2020. But what about the current leaders in Takaful? Who will be the legends of tomorrow? In this series, we'll sit down and have a conversation with pioneers and founders of Takaful in Malaysia. People who truly shaped the industry, going beyond the numbers and finding out what really inspired them, their challenges and struggles, as well as their insights. We truly hope that this will both help drive Takaful forward for the next 40 years, as well as assist countries in just starting out with Takaful. In the first 10 years of Takaful, there was only one operator, Shariah Takaful Malaysia, or STM. Anyone entering the STM office during those days knew things were done differently. The first time I went to a meeting with the CEO there, Dato' Fazli, I even remember having to take my shoes off at the entrance of the floor. They had a monopoly at that time, and they focused on establishing a presence, rather than having the cheapest rates and fierce competition. Back then, the loss ratios for motor business were noticeably better than conventional insurance, which was surprising due to the small size of STM, and the need to be large and strong enough to control the workshops. STM used Bank Islam branches as the main distribution source. The second entrant was Takaful National, or TN, the Takaful operations of the national insurer MNI. TN is now Etika and focused on agency force distribution during those days. Those days we had heavy debates on whether it was acceptable to have agents selling Takaful, promoting actually, as how the model would work, as until that point we used a Mudaraba model, with the operator paying most expenses out of surplus sharing, which occurs at the end of the year. Several years later, Maybank obtained a Takaful license, and TN eventually combined with Maybank Takaful to give rise to Etika, which had a full lineup of agency and bancassurance distribution channels for Takaful, as well as conventional insurance. During the same time, the first re-Takaful operator in Malaysia started, Ariel. So whereas the first operator relied on bank branches, and the second operator relied on its existing agency force infrastructure, Takaful Ikhlas, starting 10 years after TN, had to start from scratch. This led the CEO, Dato' Said Mohib, to drive a number of innovative solutions, including bringing the Wakala model over from the Middle East. This represents roughly the halfway point so far of the Takaful journey in Malaysia. Several years later, the era of the multinationals in Takaful began, with a range of global insurers and reinsurers recognizing the potential of this market. Prudential in particular brought synergy to its products, creating Takaful equivalents of its conventional insurance products, especially unit-linked plans. This was also the time that Bank Negara really strengthened the regulatory focus on Takaful through JPIT. Regulations were held fairly consistent between Takaful and conventional insurance, with the goal of creating a level playing field. Today, Takaful is at a crossroads in Malaysia. Although we've come a long way, we still have a long way to go to rival conventional insurance in Malaysia. Will Takaful focus on consistency with conventional insurance? Or will there be increasing innovation in the models used as well as market segments focused on? Will we be able to use Takaful to increase insurance penetration in Malaysia, especially underserved markets? Insurance in any form is about managing risks and building trust. Takaful can truly be key in many market segments in building this trust and forming the foundation of a population that understands its risks and how to manage them. This is the foundation of true financial literacy, which must be a goal for the next 40 years. Actuarial Partners has been involved since the beginning of Takaful in Malaysia and has been involved in some way with all the Takaful operators here. We truly hope that this podcast series is useful and the next 40 years of Takaful development is equally exciting. Malaysia boleh. Assalamualaikum. Are you ready for round 4? Okay, good. Okay, I know you're looking forward for Salahuddin, but he's sick. He couldn't make it today, which is sayang because he's the one with the most passion for this session. He was saying repeatedly, I'm really going to hit these panelists hard, ask them all these tough questions and everything, you know. But it's okay, I got his questions, so I promise I'll catch out them as well. Okay, I'll take over as moderator. Okay, so just a few points I want to bring out. Some of you have said, okay, you weren't able to ask questions, didn't have enough time for questions, okay? we've recorded each one of these sessions, okay? These sessions are going to be on YouTube, freely available, okay? So I'm thinking January I'll put in session 1, February session 2, and like that. Go to it on YouTube, put your questions there. I've got the WhatsApp for all the various panelists, and I'm happy to go ask them what the issues are and have them give me a response, and I'll put it into YouTube. So no problems with that. Okay? Another issue with this last session is the premise here is that as Takaful, do we have a voice? Do we have a voice as Takaful, or sebenarnya we're insurance, which is made, someone said prayers over insurance contract, and now it became halal, And what Salahuddin was talking about was the fact that look what we did with McDonald's. Look what we did with KFC. We boycotted, and we made a difference. Even when from a government point of view, there's reasons why the government couldn't do much, the people can do things. So with people, there's power, and what else can we do with this in Takaful? Okay, so I'll invite the various panelists out. Dr. Said, Wan Saiful, Ilmi. All right, there you are. You get bonus points for following the order.
Oh, okay.
We'll be the first one,
Yeah. Hassan says follow the order.
The first session following the order. Okay, I have some initial questions, which I'll go through. Some of these are from Salahuddin, some of them are from myself. But of course, who's going to take over? Any questions, jump right in, please. It's easier for me. Okay, so let me ask a first question, and I have to admit, I haven't shared these questions with them yet, so it's a little unfair, but it's okay, right? It adds the spice to life a little bit. Okay, first question is, what do you love about Takaful? This is from Salahuddin, you knew this was coming. You can talk about how you started with Takaful, but what is it about Takaful that, what do you love?
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah, good afternoon everyone. Well, I'm fortunate and unfortunate that I'm sitting next to Hassan, so probably I feel the first question for this session. Well, for me, I'll go back to the principle of Takaful and it resembles mutual assistance. And to me, that's a very beautiful concept because I can apply it to many levels. First, and I always propagate this to the staff, even within my employees' circle, what we're doing here is noble because we're mutually assisting others. Second, from the participants themselves, they're mutually assisting one another. And the third level is we are not only mutually assisting our customers, but we are mutually assisting our communities. That's why we have quite a number of impactful community projects around. So the three levels and three lenses that we look at it, and that's what I like about Takaful. It resembles mutual assistance, and we can apply mutual assistance very broadly. I think that's very engaging, and to me, that's the main purpose.
Okay. When did your love for Takaful start? Was it at Bank Negara? Was it as a consultant or Peru BSN?
I actually started dabbling into it in my final year of my uni. So that's back in early 2000s, right? My research paper for the final year is actually on Takaful. And then that grew when I joined Bank Negara. And maybe infamously, I'm probably one of the co-author for the first Takaful operational framework and the risk-based capital for Takaful, and also the IFSB paper on capital standards as well for Takaful. So yeah, so that actually increased my understanding, my belief, and on how Takaful can actually make a difference.
Okay, good. Dr. Said?
Okay, it's working. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think I'm not able to speak from the, how to say, industry perspective or the CEOs or deputy CEOs, but I think the concept of takaful by itself, fundamentally, it's part of the core fundamental of Islam, which is the concept of ta'awun. And you know the famous verse which is وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلى الْإِثْمِ الْعُدْوَانِ, so which means help each other for something what is good. And also the concept of assisting the other. And you know, from the Shariah perspective, there is a famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that was asked, who is the best in the eye of Allah? And the answer of the Prophet was the most beneficial for others. And Takaful core concept is contribute or commit to contribute to assist each other. So this is a core fundamental of Takaful. So in terms of practice, what I love in Takaful is the first courageous step to be part of the industry. Of course, no one can start perfect, but at least the start is there. And even the Prophet ﷺ, based on his practice, from those who are converted to Islam, he will not ask them to do much. A little bit, even sometimes not asking them about the core 5 pillars of Islam. Do one, and when you are okay, you will get used to it, go to the second one. So the first step to be part of this takaful or cooperation, mutual assistance, and now we are in the very good and advanced situation. This is what I love in the takaful. Of course, my experience with the companies takaful, takaful, I have almost 14 to 15 years experience as chairman Sharia committee. I think they are all doing their best to discharge their responsibility in the best level. There are, of course, there are huge rooms for improvements, but I believe improvements should come not just from the how to say, the industry player, which means the Takaful company, but should come from the academician, from the research entity, from the training in terms of awareness, and from also the regulators. This, in short, my answer on your question.
No, that's good. But let me just dig in just for a second. Did you start in with Islamic banking and for instance, the pure legalistic studies, and then you moved into Takaful, or was Takaful sort of?
No, I think Takaful was because I was doing just mu'amalat in general, and I was working on Islamic banking, Islamic capital market. But I started working with Majma' Fiqhi in some work to specialize in Takaful. And we are the first to initiate the concept of Musharaka Ta'awuniya, Ta'awun, in 2010. There was like a nadwa of Majma' in Jordan in 2010, where they criticized the concept of Tabarru. Because when you donate, you will lose the ownership of your donation. How comes this money will come to you and you will claim the surplus out of this company? Of course, there was a proposition to say it's not tabarru', but it is iltizam bit tabarru'. It's an acrobatic move to avoid the concept of tabarru', which I personally did not like. And I voiced up my concern in Jordan to say that what's wrong to come with ta'awun, the concept of ta'awun or musharaka ta'awuniya, where even the Takaful operators, they will have skin in the game. They can be partners, they can contribute. That's why in Pakistan, South Africa, they proposed the waqf concept, where they all contribute and they will be all responsible in this area. So this is what moved me to the Takaful.
Okay, excellent. As an aside, a big reason I wanted to have a mixture of Shariah and CEOs and practitioners, we can see from each other that together we're much, much stronger. My honest opinion. Elmi, how about yourself?
Yep, thank you, Hassan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am a late bloomer when it comes to Takaful. Okay, I started my career in the insurance industry back in '96 as an underwriter. Going a bit further than that, before that, you know, my ambition when I was studying was to actually become a doctor. Okay, I wanted to be a medical doctor because that was what my grandmother espoused in me. Being a doctor is something that is good because it helps people. cut long story short, I wasn't that smart in university. I couldn't get into medical school. Ended up doing a science degree and was looking for a job. So I was very, very uncertain in terms of what I will do for my future, for my career, because the ambition was to become a doctor. But God is great, and I found myself being offered a position as an underwriter in one of the insurance companies in Malaysia. I started off as that. And as I did my work in underwriting, I began to appreciate how insurance, life insurance in particular, could actually help people, in times of need. And that's where I grew to appreciate the fact that maybe perhaps God intended for me not to become a doctor, but join insurance so that I could help more people than I could if I were to become a doctor. And I started my career as I said, as underwriter, and I learned. I moved around. I did underwriting. I went to operations. I did products. I did IT. I did branches. I did customer service. And in 2006, I had the opportunity to actually cross into Takaful. And that is the beginning of my journey in Takaful 18 years ago. And it has been a wonderful journey. I've come to realize how beautiful the Takaful system is. As to what one say, the principle of mutuality, mutual assistance is something that I think is very fair. And on top of that, the fact that it is Shariah compliant, it also allows us to actually, inshallah, gain credits and pahala in the afterlife for helping people. So I think that's what I love about Takaful, and hence the reason why I'm still here. Thanks.
Okay, good. We had one of the legends in their podcast was talking about the J wallet. The J wallet. We're like, okay, what's a J wallet? Had us confused. Jannah wallet. So okay, so if you want to pay a little bit more premium for a Takaful product, it's okay. Tak rugi. That goes into your J wallet. And get to the hereafter, okay. That you'll see the interest, the investment income accruing on that. So for my own case, just for 1 second, is what I love about it is let me give an example. What is more fair to an individual person? Okay, and Zainal hates it when I give this example, but I'm oversimplifying, but ignore the actual science for a minute. Which one is more fair to an individual person? A conventional life insurance participating product or Takaful? Which one is more fair? Takaful or conventional? If you say Takaful, raise your hand. Good, but it's wrong. Okay, why do I say that? Let's say you have a conventional insurance plan, right? We go by asset shares, right? So let's say this massive problem happens this year. If you buy a product next year, you don't care. Nothing to do with you. That's last year's problem. Not in Takaful. In Takaful, the whole idea of Takaful is people helping people. People getting together, helping each other. To me, I've never heard really, show me in a hadith some places, says Takaful must be fair to a person. I've never seen that. It's people helping people. So we have this thing called card, Hassan, right? But card is not about shareholders helping the participants. It's about next year's participants helping this year's participants. Same thing if you got extra surplus and you leave it in the fund. It's about this year's participants helping next year's participants. People helping people. So anyway, that's my own thinking on that. Okay, all of you weren't around at the beginning, but Azam, Life, mentioned that a reality is that agents tend to focus on insurance concepts. They don't really focus on, the Shariah side, halal, haram, and all that kind of aspects. His comment was, it's easier to focus on the insurance side of it than to focus on the Shariah side and everything. So I was just hoping to get your comments. Should we focus on halal and haram more, or if we were having this discussion in some African countries, in Nigeria, giving this presentation, it's very aggressive, and they'll talk about halal, haram, and they'll shake your fist at you. It's totally acceptable. But here in Malaysia, we're very careful not to upset feelings and everything. But in terms of the way we're selling right now, are we watering things down too much by not really talking about the Shariah side of it enough? I'll start from the other side.
Okay, I think given that we are, given the culture and context that we operate in Malaysia, there is a tough, direct way of doing things, and there is also a subtle way of doing things. And I think when it comes to the segment of the population, you are pretty much, when agents meet up with potential customers, they have to also assess as to whether or not, what kind of a background or character is that person is. Being too strong on certain things may invite a negative reaction. I suppose the safest way is to take the safest route. And I think that in certain ways, convincing people of the benefits of Takaful is much more easier to tell something that is good about Takaful, what can you do to help, as opposed to say that you cannot do that because it's haram. So it depends again on it's a very complex question. It may be a simple question, but it depends on the background of the agents. It also depends on the background of the customers as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Dr. Said, what do you think? You're definitely going to say halal, haram.
No, I think the approach of advocating or promoting Takaful does not necessarily come to tell people this is haram, this is halal. No. I think even from pure Sharia perspective, you don't need to promote yourself by discarding the others. So that's even not one of the core fundamentals of Sharia. Just you provide the benefits of the Takaful. However, you need also to highlight the core fundamentals of Takaful. When the Prophet ﷺ sent his companion to Ethiopia in the first hijrah, so when they promote Islam, they promote the core values of Islam. They do not mention names, halal, haram, this just core fundamentals. And even the king, he said that not much difference between Christianity and Islam in terms of these core fundamentals. Now we have the mutual assistance. We have, as you mentioned, that next year is a new year for assisting each other, regardless of what happened last year. Is not forget about what happened last year. Second, when I contribute something, this is one of the ethical motivation, religious fundamental. When I contribute things, money, for the sake of mutual assistance, even if I will not get anything next year, no claim, but I am happy that I am part of the contributors to benefit the others, to cover the claims of it. This is the things that we need to promote without raising flags of halal, haram, and other things. That's my general view. Okay,
that's interesting, and that's consistent with the prior session. Actually, they were talking about focusing on helping each other. The fortunate many helping out the unfortunate few. Because the big question now in the industry is medical riders and medical expense inflation and whatnot. And one of those issues is the people that don't claim, they say, I didn't claim any money, but yet, you're increasing my premiums, my contributions by 50%, 100%. It's crazy. Where if they're talking about, if we can get them to be thinking about this is you're helping other people, and people just need a lot more help now, then that's probably a step in the right direction.
Have we promote ourselves? That's the issue also from the industry in terms of marketing the product, in terms of awareness, in terms of training. So this is what we are missing. Because if we get in touch with the participants, I think they will understand that they will appreciate. Sometimes we're expecting the participants. Of course, you will have always segment of people that we say in Arabic, لا يعجبه العجب ولا الصيام في رجب. Nothing will please him. Even if you spend the whole life trying to convince him, he will not be pleased. But I believe that this is, I think, the awareness. We got a case in Algeria where they have called for waqf contribution, and in the beginning, people, they were hesitant. But there was a good governance in terms of the little contribution for the first year or the first few years. And when they have shown the contribution of this work for these people who are in need and schools, the contribution in the next year, it was tremendous. Why? Because they have seen the value of their contribution, and also they were able to get in touch with the people. So this is where we, Takaful operators, regulators, even especially Takaful operators, because they have the highest responsibility to promote such values. So this is where people, they will start gradually to appreciate the contribution, even if they are paying higher premium.
Okay, that's an interesting point. They have some Christian insurance companies where what you said, for instance, the participants understand who they're helping. So it's not seen as me paying a premium to an insurance company and God knows what they're doing. It's okay, I paid this contribution, they call it contribution as well. But you'll find out who's actually going to be using your money. And even they have systems where you pray for the people and everything, which is, it's kind of a nice...
Yeah, so just to supplement, it's actually in the way that we provide an impact-based update to the customers in terms of the Tabarru they've paid for a year. I mean, you can imagine, right? A company writing a note of thank you to a particular participant. Thank you for your Tabarru donation of this much, of which it has actually helped contributed to this much of claims collectively amongst everyone. And so there is a call now to actually have a lot more of these updates, impact-based information being given to participants in terms of what they have done collectively, right? And going out to each individual, yeah.
So helping them to understand their J wallet, right? Their Jannah wallet.
No, I think just leveraging on what Elmi has mentioned, I think the missing link is, to me, two key points. One is managing the customer's expectations upfront, and second is a continuous kind of reminder or re-education, right? The first part to it, I mean, let's take example of the medical repricing. Yes, I think there should be emphasis in terms of, that they're contributing to their J wallet, not only, just to expect coverage for themselves, but at the same time, the notion of price, medical inflation and how this will actually impact their contribution, etc., is probably not managed very clearly upfront as well. So I think that's the first part in terms of managing expectation. The second part is on the re-education. So maybe a challenge even to my own team and my company. Let's say if you donate to Magna, Mercy, UNICEF, etc., every single year you get a report who have they helped, etc., and all that. Have we as a company actually do that, right? So that people see value in terms of what they've actually contributed, rather than, because if they don't see the value in terms of what they've contributed, then they only see the cost of it.
Okay, that's very interesting, right? That gets people to understand that there's others. You're not alone. It's not you versus this Takaful company. We're all in this together, so to speak. Can we actually do this, or does this break down the data privacy?
No, we can actually do this while preserving some privacy. So in previous and few years back, we have actually tested this concept. We actually launched the app as well, previous app. We call it previous and Aman. And how it does is actually really testing a new model. It's a crowd sourcing kind of concept. You pay a certain amount of contribution, but we won't be actually deducting anything until actual claims actually being made from the fund. And we will also, every single month, we will update in terms of whether a claims has been made, etc., and how your deduction will actually be helped to meet these certain claims. I think it's probably at that point in time, I would say, it could be too new. We've tried to push it as hard. We tested it using the sandbox under B&M. But after a while, I think we arrive at the stage that, look, can we scale this up or can we not scale this up? And we we took the decision that probably not at this point in time. So we shut it down, unfortunately. But it's a test to really try to embed, because the idea, the trajectory of this model is really to look at bringing in the connection element, right? I mean, the team has ambitious idea. Maybe when we expand further, we could look at, donating a doa as well from the app, etc., and all that. But I guess, but didn't gain the traction that needed.
That's right. I mean, that's to me, another amazing piece. I mean, you can talk about the doa. You can also talk. There's a certain aspect that if somebody nearby to you is in the hospital or whatever, it's a very good thing for you to be visiting them. So imagine if part of the app you could have because all the Takaful companies have apps now. So if you could have a pick there, okay, so I'm opt-in. So if I go to the hospital, then you'll make it known to people within a certain radius of me that I'm at this certain place, and your fellow participants can come visit you in the hospital. It's bringing us together a little bit more. Okay, connecting this, because one aspect of this whole session today has been learning from the past and bringing it into the future. So you've had sort of the traditional Takaful market segments, which have done amazing, done very good work that they've done so far. But there's also the underserved, and that's a much harder segment to get into. Like for instance, Dr. Said, you were talking quite a bit about the real, not focusing halal versus haram, like scaring people, I suppose, but rather the beauty of it, how we are helping each other and whatnot. But what about underserved segments? I'll just throw it out. The agricultural sector, the farmers and whatnot. I mean, God knows the farmers need protection and more coverage and whatnot. But in this segment, whether they don't trust Takaful and insurance yet, maybe they don't understand the need for risk management. Would some sort of a new type of thinking, focused more on the concepts you've been talking, would that be helpful? And in my mind is, compared to the rest of us, you've done work in a number of different countries. So maybe you've seen in certain countries, their Takaful is focusing on a different market segment. Maybe they're focusing on the lower market or underserved. Are there different ways of thinking that we can get to those people?
I think some markets, for example, I know that for example, in Nigeria, for instance, they are speaking about this underserved, micro-Takaful agriculture people. However, I believe that to address this one, I think we have to come together, the regulator, to incentivize Takaful companies to assist, because if you assist those segments, of course you have to, renounce or relinquish part of your profit, or at least part of your surplus, which means, are you ready to go that way? So this is one. Second, you need to have also contribution from the participants. So this is where I believe, and you can have it in combination with the banking sector. So this is where we need to have an innovative approach to assist those who are in real need of Takaful, but they don't opt to it either because of the pricing or because of the awareness. So this is where we need to work together. And I know that Bank Negara is working hard to promote such alternatives with this, recommending such coverage with this blended financing, Takaful and all those things. But I believe that we need to have, like we say, a complete shift into our understanding Takaful. That's why, even from our perspective, we say that we are discussing or promoting the maqasid-based Takaful approach, where the concept of profit, the concept of ribh, the concept of prosperity, the concept of growth has to be seen from, not just from financial perspective, but from the added value perspective. And when we were writing some of our works, we came across a report of OECD where it's a beautiful report. Even the title is something very attractive. The title is Redefining Growth. Now, people, when they speak about growth, they speak about 5.6 GDP, 7, 8. Now they say growth should not be seen just from pure financial perspective. It has to be aggregated with the equitable distribution of wealth, with the well-being of the people, with the added value, with the protection of the environment. So this is a new, new dimension that we need to present to Takaful to make it easy for both regulator. Of course, it has the initial initiative has to come from the regulator, because if I am motivated or incentivized or even warned by the regulator, I will take care of the situation. But if it's coming from that perspective, it will be easy for Takaful operator to have their, I will say bold and courageous initiative to move towards those underserved people. That's my view on this one.
Okay. Let me just stop for 1 second. Any questions so far or comments? Discussions why you love Takaful? Yes. That way. I say, you either volunteer or I come around with a mic and start volunteering people. I'm American, I can do that, you know.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fauzilah from University Sultan Zainal Abidin, Terengganu. Okay, I love Takaful. Okay, actually I got involved with Takaful since 1987 when I joined the industry after my degree. Okay. Protect insurance broker at that time, okay, and we did most of our corporate client. I will offer for Takaful at that time, STMB, Shariah Takaful Malaysia, and also Takaful National. After a few years with the industry, Kuza at that time offered me as a lecturer, so I go back to Terengganu to be an academician. Okay. After that, me and Takaful is still not separate, but I try to close the gap between academician and industry. We understand that academician industry, the gap is very huge. Okay, what academician said, maybe it is not so what we call industry accept. Okay, and what industry said, maybe the academician not well agree. Okay, so when I did my research almost 15 years in Takaful, okay, then I come to the conclusion, okay, on the product of Takaful, we are already 40 years Takaful in Malaysia, and yet only 20% the market penetration. What can I conclude that? Looking at our our category, T20, B40, M40. In other words, 20% is what we call that is covered by T20. What I can conclude from my research? Okay, T20 meant 20% market penetration meant 40-20 category. What about M40 and B40? Are we, or Takaful operator, do we cater this group of people? Or we just only cater for that T20? That's why we can say that Takaful and conventional is the same. Because you are using the same product and the same target market. Okay? Not those M40 and B40 who are really need for the protection. Okay, my question is, okay, how can our Takaful model be adapted to be better served for the needs of this group people, B40 and M40? This is for the future of Takaful. We need to think about designing or modeling the Takaful not only to tackle for T20, but also this group of people. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Totally agree with with your comments, actually. Okay, let me send this way, but let's do separately if you don't mind. M40 and B40. M40 is the middle 40% of wage earners. B40 is the bottom 40% of wage earners. So generally speaking, it's quite difficult. The B40 is not a homogeneous group. The bottom 20% is, extremely hard to deal with. And I'm going to disturb Wan Saiful after this on some of his initiatives. I think that's the market segment. But so the B40 and M40 separately. What can we do differently than it is now? Not saying the current way is bad. Not saying AIA is doing anything wrong. Peru BSN is doing anything wrong. Totally fine, perfect, wonderful for that segment. But if we were going to go for M40 and B40, how might we do things a bit differently? Volunteers?
Okay, maybe I'll start. So, I think maybe I'll establish a baseline. I think the baseline in terms of servicing, whether it's B40 or M40 and all that, it's not so much about the models, it's not so much about the products, etc. I think, yes, it plays some part, but to me, the major part of it is the last mile connection, which is the distribution. So, example, for Peru BSN, we actually segment our customers in various segments. We have even the B1 or B2, right? We have the upper B40, we have the M40, and we have the affluent market, and we segment in that manner. The poor and the hardcore poor, I think within the eKasih database, there's about 100,000 households in there. To me, they're not going to pay for a coverage they're not going to be able to contribute, right? So we work with the Prime Minister's Department. We started to 2018, and we've actually provide the coverage. And in terms of sources of funding, yes, we started initially through our zakat fund, but now we have enlarged it. Maybe that's what probably Hassan you want to ask about. So in our products now, we have in most of products, nearly all now, that you actually have a rider, we call it Ihsan rider, where customers can actually contribute extra. And to this Ihsan rider, Ihsan rider is not to cover for yourself, but it's actually to be used to provide free coverage for the poor and hardcore poor. And we also have, we call it Giving a Workplace, and we work with various organizations to also raise crowdsourcing. We also be launching with a few banks soon as well in terms of crowdsourcing in order to enlarge that, to provide that coverage for the poor and hardcore poor. Now for the upper segment of B40, which we believe they have the ability to pay based on our market research, etc. So we actually use our bank partner, which is very active in terms of financial inclusion on the ground. That helps with last mile connection. I think up till today, maybe I think the stats about 300,000, the upper segment of B40 that we have actually covered itself through the deduction over the fulfillment over the counter. They can submit claims through the bank counters, etc. So basically providing that last mile connection, because last mile connection is not only about distribution, it's about how are you going to cater for ongoing payments, claims, etc. You got to think through that operationalization of the process itself.
Okay, I'm wondering why other companies haven't copied you, I'm a huge Wan Saiful fan, I have to say. The idea of, because Dr. Said was talking about, we need to make it aware that it's people helping people, what we're doing, the good we're doing. But imagine if every time the agent has this contract, okay, I'm trying to sell this product, medical product, whatever it is. It's oh, by the way, we've got this rider, so this is your G wallet. This is, you can pay us, is there a minimum, like 20 ringgit, 100?
5 ringgit.
Oh, 5 ringgit. Minimum 5 ringgit a month. And you can do this to help people, others that truly need Takaful. It seems like an amazing idea. I don't know. Elmi, you want to?
Yeah, so let me just supplement about what Wan mentioned. And to answer the question as to how do we drive financial inclusion into the underserved segments. Well, actually, when we talk about underserved segments, I believe that the underserved, when we talk about under-penetrated segment, it actually cuts across all classes, from B40, M40, and T20. There are people who, within those segments, actually don't have Takaful coverage or don't have enough Takaful coverage. But of course, our focus is actually helping the lower segment, because that's where, when tragedy occurs, they are the most impacted. And hence, the focus of the industry, the focus of MTA is to help the B40 obtain more coverage. Now, the Takaful industry has been around for 40 years. And I think through that 40 years, we have seen how now there are more companies that has come about. Back in 2006, Bank Negara issued more licenses, and 2011 more licenses as well. There is also this aspect about building the necessary expertise and experience within all of the Takaful operators for them to be able to start to be able to generate good products that are useful for the community, products that people could understand. And hence the reason why, for a start, a criticism is that when there were a lot of products in the old days where it was actually a copy of conventional. But to be fair, companies now are getting better. They are now having more expertise in terms of how to create products that can actually be useful for the targeted market segments, especially the low income. There is also the issue of, and this is a real issue, in terms of the financial capability of a Takaful operator to actually start to experiment in segments where you do not know whether or not is it going to work or not. A company, in order to develop a product, it requires resources, both financial and people as well. And sometimes you don't have a very good idea as to whether or not is this going to work out. And if you make the wrong decision, the company will suffer losses, and that has to be answered for, right? So I think this is where the role of MTA becomes important, because collectively as an industry, when Takaful operators work together, we are able to do something together which we cannot do on our own. So now we see MTA now being involved in exploring the possibility of blended Takaful at an industry level, because it allows companies who may not be able to have the financial resources to do this on their own to collectively work with other operators to do this. I think that in terms of affordability of products, when we look at the products in the market, you can see products now have become much more affordable. You have products which yearly cost about 50 ringgit, which is very reasonable, especially for the lower market segment. And furthermore, there are government subsidies which helps people in the lower income segment to have these products without having to pay, for example, the Perlindungan Tenang voucher. But the issue here, as to what Wan Saiful is saying, is actually the last mile. It's about reach, it's about financial literacy, making people aware that they need to get Takaful coverage because it's a good form of risk management. I think that's where whilst we have done a lot of work, more work needs to be done. So that's where then MTA then plays a role to help drive this. So we have to approach this with a sense of optimism that we can make a change, and that collectively we all can work together, especially together in MTA, to help drive further financial literacy and also penetration as well. Thank you.
Okay, I got a whole bunch of other questions on MTA, but I'll ask whether there's any other questions for now? Anything? You want me to ask you questions? In my team, 5:15 give a bell, yeah? 5:20 is a hard stop, the two C's.
Maybe if I can add and to link what Prof is saying and what Elmi mentioned. I think taking a leaf of the banking industry, right? The banking industry have launched iTakeCard in a very big way, and I mean just a very quickie on iTakeCard. iTakeCard is basically, you see, for the banking industry, they also want to serve the underserved, but they know that the usual financing to the underserved will be too risky, so that they actually make use of the zakat money to use that as a form of financing. Right, and so they can learn from the experience, and from the experience, then, if the people, the recipients or the micro entrepreneurs and all that, they build their financial capability, then they can move up the value chain, and then they can get the proper financing. So, I mean, as a Takaful operator, I think we should be willing to. I know it's easy to take a zakat fund and give to the zakat authorities and get some wakalah back to do your own initiative, but that's rather tempting from a convenience point of view. But I encourage that, for us to use that instead to do test and learn. Right. So, for example, I mean, one of the recent, I wouldn't say bold move, but it's just more of, I mean, we use this for the micro-Takaful Shariah, the zakat fund. Recently, we partnered with a wakaf entity to actually roll out. People can call us crazy, but we roll out coverage for clinical for the B40. So we pilot with 500 people, using the zakat fund. I mean, and to be able to learn the experience, so that the idea is once we learn from that, we can scale it up.
Yes, sir. How are you?
The start of Ravinder, InsurTech, AQM Tech. The start of my career was overseas. I was an actuary in Europe for 15 years before I came back. What I love about Takaful is that even though it's not a Malaysian thing, it is like a Malaysian thing, especially for family. For a long time, there weren't many markets that were doing family. It was general Takaful, but not. So this is really a Malaysian success story. And I work with many of you all in the industry. Actually, our industry is very wonderful because we're all quite young. We had senior positions from quite young age. So with the youth and experience, we've come up to a very high level. And I can see Malaysia being the first country in the world to have a Takaful policy for every Malaysian. And that is something I never thought could ever happen. But I don't think we are very far away from that. So what I want to say is that MTA is the champion for Takaful in Malaysia. It's not Bank Negara because they are a regulator. They can be, but they're regulator. It's too complicated. MTA can be the champion. You need to be there. You need to be part of every solution because you are MTA. Any Takaful product coming out in Malaysia, MTA needs to be involved. Can you all not just look among yourselves, your members, but open up for creativity under the banner of penetration, which is good for all, good for Malaysia. MTA champions open out to InsurTech to come up with ideas that MTA perhaps provide a bit of funding and stuff like that. Obviously, you need to sign some agreements to say that you don't take over the project and stuff like that. So independently, you'll champion this together, and I'm sure we can solve the penetration problem. Because your resources are so limited. You got your agency, you got your bank assurance, you got enough challenges on your plate. But we have ideas out there. So I just open up whether MTA is ready. I have had communications in the last 6 months, but the interest is not there. So I don't know whether you can change that.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Ravinder. And the philosophy of MTA is to be inclusive. Okay, it is reflected in the way that we work with member companies. The new D2 framework that has come out, we have also engaged to welcome any the DTO's players to come in as well, to become our member. And as for fintech, we would welcome working with them as well. There is actually a way for stakeholders who are interested to actually work with MTA to actually gain associate membership or in that form, that will enable them to be part of the conversations and dialogue in MTA. So so the message is, we are open to working with stakeholders, and I think InsurTech has a big role to play, especially now, and that will definitely help us bridge the last mile. So I think to your question, we do welcome that, and I would be happy to actually help any party that wants to come and work MTA. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. That connects with something that Dato' Said Muhib was mentioning. See, in China, there's a lot of ideation, coming up with ideas, not so much from the insurance companies, but from the public, so to speak. And they were quite willing to work with other parties for technological solutions, and it wasn't necessarily an insurance thing. It was, they were very willing to work with outside parties. Okay, staying with MTA for a minute or two. What else can MTA do? I mean, this is a sensitive question. I totally understand that. But we've been, over the last year, we've had monthly podcasts with the Legends. And sometimes they would say it, sometimes beforehand we'd have like a interrogation session. Like, what are you going to say? Is there anything we need to worry about? Do we need to cut anything out? So MTA wasn't always the most popular organization. The idea was, if conventional insurance is haram, can we just say it's haram? Can we say, okay, why are Muslims selling conventional insurance? Honest comment. I know we want to focus on the good, but should MTA have more of a voice to say, this is what Takaful is? Honest questions.
So under Hijrah 27, which is the roadmap for the next few years, where we want to grow sustainable, Takaful expansion. The focus is actually on the values of Takaful, and what we are focusing more is the going back to basics in terms of the principle of mutuality, the sama-sama, and that's something that we feel is the approach that we want to take. We are very careful about the haram and halal bit, because I think there are sensitivities that we need to be mindful of in the country when it comes to that. Yeah? So, yeah.
Okay, any other MTA?
Well, I would say we go back to the earlier topic, right? And I think we can lay it out as factual. Fact, some of the fatwas in relation to insurance, and also, the sum assured that you get paid, etc., and all that. I think it's important to lay out that factual thing. But to me, do we want to continue repeat that over and over again? Because I guess, from my perspective, is we have to really move towards what's the additional value that we are actually adding as an industry. Because if we keep on hiding from that perspective, creating the compulsion, we will never innovate and be better as an industry. Let me relate to another case study. For some of you might know this, La Riba in America, Bank of Retail. They call themselves riba free, but if you look at their operations, it's not only riba free, right? They actually do proper advice to their customers. When a borrower wants to borrow, they check the rent values, they check the value of the house. And yes, from a conventional bank perspective, they will do your valuation as well. And they will tell you, okay, this valuation, you can't justify your loan. That's it. But from their perspective, they also have database of the house prices, value per square feet in the area, and they advise, based on your income, you can't afford this house, but why not? You take take up another house nearer the location, which is within yours. And that actually provides a value add to the customer. And during the global financial crisis, the NPL stays almost relatively flat, while all the other banks actually jump up the roof. So I think we have to focus on that value piece rather than, oh, you know, it's riba free, you got to take from us, because after a while, people just get tired of it.
Okay. Dr. Said, from an outsider's point of view, outside of the industry, if you had a wish list for MTA, the Takaful Association, what they can be doing more to bring Takaful in line with, you know, what you've talked about as the beauty of Takaful. Like you said, sometimes an industry has to do it rather than an individual company.
I think to be fair to MTE, they have done one first big step in terms of this maqasid-based VBIT scorecard, which is a very good move towards at least achieving the core values of Takaful, which is very important. I believe that the second thing is just to bring the industry towards enhancing the core values of Takaful. Yes, you may not, you may take into consideration the sensitivity, don't just proclaim this is halal, this is haram, but there are many other ways to, how to say, to promote, to advocate the core values of Takaful. Either from the awareness, I think they have to work within the industry to increase the level of awareness, not towards the participants, no, towards the Takaful operators, because this is what needs to be increased first. And they need to have more interaction to find ways with the regulator on how to promote the genuine Takaful. Because I see that Bank Negara, they are now pushing very hard towards the genuine, the fundamental Takaful, the concept of ta'awun that they have mentioned it, they have promoted it, and we have had some meetings with some representatives. I can say that I have been in Malaysia for 29 years here. I am almost completing my 30th years here in Malaysia. And I can say comfortably that Malaysia, in terms of genuinity, it's the most advanced country in terms of promoting Takaful and promoting Islamic finance compared. So, and especially what I like more is that the regulator and also the association, the MTA, they are working towards achieving these core fundamentals. But there are a lot to be done, and it has to be strategic. I have gone through the Hijrah 27, which is theoretically it's a very good initiative, strategic direction. However, a lot to be done with the collaboration of the Takaful industry and the regulators. So that's my general comment.
Okay, we're at a stopping point. I know we could go on for a long time, but two of them have an important meeting with Bank Negara. We were hoping the meeting was going to be beforehand so they could give us up-to-the-minute response from, you know, what's going on in the industry, but I think not yet. Any final parting words? You're okay.
Yeah, I think, you know, from MTA, I think it's, we look forward to actually your support and your suggestions and your ideas in terms of, you know, how we could improve. There's a real sense of cooperation amongst members, which is very, very good now. It is actually very, very strong. And as I mentioned earlier, we want to be inclusive in terms of the way that we approach things, so that we can get feedback from as many stakeholders as possible. So I would encourage interaction with MTA, either through any of the CEOs or through the secretariat themselves. And I hope that, you know, all of you will be part of this journey, as all of you, you know, are stakeholders, and we all love Takaful and want to see this grow. So I would really appreciate your prayer, your thoughts, and your support and your ideas as well. Thank you very much. Inshallah, we'll be get better at this and achieve, you know, the dream that we want to have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other final? Khalas.
I guess we've covered quite a lot of points, but just thinking out loud, you know, 40 years have passed now. What can we do to move forward? One word that came to mind, we have to mainstream it, right? So And what do I mean by mainstreaming it? I mean, just now we talk about halal and haram. To me, I'm not a, yes, we need to state the factual thing, but I'm not a believer of or proponent of, just always comparing with another one. And, in order to look good, we have to put down the other party. To me, I don't think that's the right approach. To me, we have to shine it through our ideas, through our innovation, through our values. So even mainstreaming, I remember there was a few years back, even in previous end, we did a review. Do we actually necessarily need to use a lot of the Arabic words? Because if we are going to mainstream things, then why put something that people don't understand, right? So make it as lay as possible for people to be able to understand it. Yes, we abide by the concept, we abide by the values of it, and we enhance, so example, mutual assistance. We don't talk so much about Tabarru. Yes, it's in a contract, but we use the concept of mutual assistance as a placeholder.
Okay, interesting. Okay, we absolutely have to let you two go for your meeting. So, join me in thanking the panelists. Okay. Shukran. Okay. Okay. And okay. Very quick. But don't go away yet, yeah? Okay. Last is Zainal for a few last words. Okay. Thanks so much. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. I think it's a plus point that, if I look at the audience, I think at least 70–80% of you were here at the beginning of the morning, and you're still here, which I think would be a testament to the fact that we have actually provided with you, or provided an interesting session for you. Now, if nothing else, I think one of the things that we have actually tried to get across is the fact that Takaful is not insurance, right? It is Takaful by itself. It's something which is basically an improvement to insurance. And I think what we need to do now, if I can borrow what was mentioned just now on the stage, is how to make Takaful mainstream. Because in order for us to actually ensure that Takaful will succeed, we need to ensure that we have a sufficient volume, if you like, in terms of participation in the industry. That's the only way we can make it successful, because that's the only way we can keep the frictional cost down, right? As I mentioned just now, we want to ensure that out of every $1 that we actually spend in terms of contribution, at least 95% goes towards paying claims. Paying claims is good, notwithstanding the fact that we might sort of feel that basically a successful operation is one business whereby you don't pay claims. Not paying claims means you are mis-selling. The last thing I would like just to comment is the fact that we need to consider how we can actually encourage the participation of the people in the lower income group. I mean, we do see that affordability is a question, but we also see that, the concept of Takaful is one more of actually, the fortunate helping the less fortunate. So how can we actually then operationalize it better? Because now, we're doing it to some extent indirectly to the surplus in the Takaful fund. And that's because of the fact that over time, we have had, I'll call it, shall I put it to the actuaries in terms of being able to actually ensure that these funds are sustainable over the long term, that you accumulate surplus, and that we can use the surplus, if you like, to help expand Takaful over parts of the population that's not been able to afford to be covered by Takaful. So with those last words, I'd like to thank you again for your participation, and watch this space. Hopefully, inshallah, going forward, we have completed the Legends of Takaful series, and I have to say that many a times that I've been told when before I start the podcast that, I'm not a legend, you know, I'm just basically, you know, doing this because I believe firmly that this is something that's good for the ummah. No, you know, people, we don't want to call it minions of Takaful, because minions of Takaful won't sell. So basically we had to call it Legends of Takaful. So I have to lastly, you know, thank everybody who's participated in the podcast for giving the time, as it were, you know, to make it a success. And inshallah, now we're coming to a close of 2024. And, you know, I mean, let's see what the next 40 years have in store for Takaful. Thank you again for your participation. Have a good, safe trip home. Thank you. Bye.